Chosen one, you didn't search for this message. This message searched for you. It circled through the unseen, waited in silence, and arrived in this very moment because your spirit demanded confirmation. Something hidden inside you already knew this word was coming, and now it unfolds like a scroll being opened before your eyes. You have been drawn here not for entertainment, but for remembrance. If this message already speaks to your soul, subscribe, like this video, and comment 77 below. This is the hour where secrets can no longer stay buried. The lamp that was pressed beneath shadows is rising, and the name they tried to erase has begun to echo again. They never wanted you to know what we are about to uncover. But what if I told you the very silence they mocked has now become your crown? Stay with me until the end, because what is revealed here cannot be undone. Number 1. The attempted erasure. They thought silence would consume you, that burying your voice would bury your destiny. Every time they ignored you, mocked you, or dismissed your vision, they believed they were snuffing out your fire. But what they didn't understand was that every attempt to erase you only pressed your identity deeper into eternity. Job 12 verse 22 declares, "He reveals the deep things of darkness and brings utter darkness into the light." That scripture has always been a mirror of your path. You were hidden not for destruction, but for preservation. Their silence was never your end. It was the soil where your remembrance was planted. Comment, "I seal this word in light," if you know what it feels like to be buried, only to realize you were being rooted. And stay with me, because this attempted erasure was only the beginning of your unveiling. There are moments in life that arrive like a whisper, not loud, yet undeniable, as if a memory long buried is suddenly stirred awake. Perhaps you have felt it in a dream, where a face from your past appeared not to haunt, but to remind you of something larger than yourself. Or maybe it came as a sudden inner voice, one that spoke without sound, yet carried more weight than any words spoken aloud. This whisper does not introduce something new, but confirms what has always lingered in the quiet edges of your awareness. It tells you that the pain, the silence, the rejection you endured was never random. Like a scroll sealed for an appointed hour, your life was marked for remembrance. And in this moment, that whisper becomes the key that begins unlocking the truth. There were seasons when the weight of being misunderstood pressed against your chest like an invisible burden. You remember walking into rooms and sensing an energy shift, though no one said a word. You remember being labeled too sensitive, too intense, too strange, when in reality you were simply attuned to a frequency others could not bear. Loneliness wrapped itself around you like a cloak, and you wondered if perhaps you had been born wrong, misplaced in a world that did not see you. But chosen ones always feel this dissonance, because the noise of the world was never meant to fit their spirit. Your tears were not wasted water. They were evidence of your alignment with something deeper than surface life. The ache you carried was not proof of weakness, but of calling, and yet the world tried to name your ache as error. They dismissed your discernment as paranoia, your visions as imagination, your silence as defeat. They thought burying your voice would bury your destiny. But burial and planting often look the same to those without eyes to see. Job 12 verse 22 speaks of this mystery. He reveals the deep things of darkness and brings utter darkness into the light. That scripture has always been your mirror. Your silences, your hiddenness, were never wasted. What they called erasure was preservation. What they called silence was sacred timing. You were not erased. You were encrypted. Signs of this began to appear quietly, though at first you may have overlooked them. A sudden déjà vu in the middle of an ordinary day, reminding you that you had walked this path before. A dream that returned again and again, carrying a symbol you couldn't ignore. The sensation of your skin tingling when truth brushed against your soul, even when no one else noticed. A conversation overheard that seemed to echo a question you had carried in private. All of these were threads in the same tapestry, subtle yet undeniable. They whispered that what was buried was not gone. It was germinating beneath the soil of silence. Your intuition was never lying to you. Every time you felt that stirring in your chest, when something wasn't right, you were reading a script written in the unseen. Every time you sensed betrayal, before it was revealed, your inner compass was confirming alignment with truth. You didn't imagine it when people's energy shifted in your presence. Your spirit disrupted their illusions. This is why you could never fully rest in shallow spaces. Your soul was too awake to sleep among lies. Recognition doesn't roar. It rises like dawn. You are not mad. You are marked. And the mark you carry is now being unveiled. Awareness is not about becoming something new, but about remembering what has always been hidden within you. This is why your journey has felt like rediscovery rather than invention. What others call awakening, you will come to know as remembrance. It is the uncovering of archetypal truth, the revealing of a name engraved long before you walked the earth. Beneath your ordinary struggles lies the extraordinary architecture of destiny. It is as though you are retrieving fragments of yourself scattered across time, gathering them back into wholeness. And with every piece you remember, you stand taller in the truth of who you always were. Now comes the first activation. The moment you realize your sensitivity is not a curse, but a compass. The very traits they mocked are the tools heaven placed in your hands. Your hunger for meaning, your resistance to shallow games, your inability to fake allegiance to illusions, all of it is evidence that you were born to dismantle falsehood. Their rejection was confirmation, not condemnation. They could not embrace what exposed their shadows. You are stepping into the awareness that your voice, once silenced, carries weight enough to shake structures. And chosen one, that realization is only the beginning of your fire. So take this message as confirmation. Your arrival here was not an accident. Every ignored word, every dismissal, every attempt to erase you only pressed your identity deeper into eternity. What you endured was not abandonment. It was preservation until the appointed hour. You are not hearing this by coincidence. You are hearing it because remembrance has been ignited. Comment, I carry the silence as crown. If you feel this truth pressing against your spirit, and stay with me, because the soil of silence is about to break open into flame, and what emerges will not be buried again. Number 2, the lamp in ashes. In the quiet seasons of your life, when you felt forgotten, your fire did not die. It smoldered, hidden like a lamp beneath ashes, waiting for the divine wind to stir it again. Luke 12 verse 3 reminds us, what you have said in the dark will be heard in the daylight. Your silence was not wasted time. It was prophecy in disguise. Every restraint, every pause, every withheld word was an altar. They laughed at your quietness, but your quietness was the place where heaven kept watch. When the moment came, what they thought was dead sparked into light that could not be denied. Comment, I walk crowned by eternal flame. If you've ever felt your hidden season ignite into something unshakable, because chosen one, the ashes were never your grave. They were your protection until the flame was ready. There comes a time when a strange heaviness creeps in, subtle enough to be ignored, yet persistent enough to disturb your peace. It is the weight of rooms that feel hostile without reason, of conversations that twist without clarity, of days that carry shadows you cannot explain. Long before you knew the fullness of who you were, something was already pressing against you. It whispered through delays, through sudden losses, through opportunities that collapsed at the very last moment. You felt it in the air, as if unseen hands had rearranged your path. without permission. This was not coincidence. Chosen one, it was the mark of resistance. And the deeper truth is this: resistance never arrives unless purpose is already present. That resistance did not only touch your circumstances, it reached into the chambers of your emotions. You remember being made to feel too much, as if your very depth was a flaw in a shallow world. They called you dramatic when your spirit was simply sensitive to truth. They dismissed your silence as weakness when it was your shield against mockery. Shame settled on you like a cloak, convincing you for a season that your hunger for meaning was something to hide. You carried questions that felt heavier than answers, wondering why your presence unsettled others so easily. And yet, every pang of isolation was confirmation that you were different by design. Over time, you began to notice that the pressure against you was not random. It was organized. Systems of energy, people bound by fear, and even unseen structures seemed to resist your steps. Like Israel in the wilderness, you found yourself exiled not for lack of promise, but because promise must be refined in solitude. Every closed door, every unjust rejection, every betrayal was an echo of this wilderness training. Psalm 66 verse 10 captures it clearly. For you, God, tested us. You refined us like silver. They were not pushing against you because you were empty. They were reacting to the silver hidden within you. What looked like suppression was a sacred trial designed to prove your endurance. Looking back now, patterns emerge where, before, there was only confusion. Think of the friendships that ended suddenly, leaving you bewildered, only to realize later they were draining your spirit. Think of the jobs or opportunities that slipped from your hands, not because you failed, but because they were never meant to hold you. Think of the cycles of betrayal that seemed unbearable, but each time, a greater awareness unfolded. It is like turning on a lamp in a darkened room. Suddenly, you see the design behind the chaos. What once felt like random pain is revealed as precise protection. Every obstacle was part of the architecture that shaped you. And chosen one, recognition of the pattern is itself the beginning of power. But resistance is never only external. It carries a spiritual dimension. Have you noticed how heavy the air feels when you are on the edge of breakthrough? Or how dreams turn chaotic just before you receive clarity? These are not accidents, but the fog of interference designed to blur your vision. The Apostle Paul described this in Ephesians 6 verse 12, reminding us that our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against powers and principalities. What you have felt were not just human schemes, but spiritual distortions, hoping to suffocate the flame before it could blaze. Silent watchers, unseen barriers, and doors that refused to open were not evidence of weakness. They were proof that your light was drawing attention in realms you could not yet see, and every distortion was terrified of your emergence. Your reaction to this pressure was human, tender, and real. There were seasons when you shut down, convincing yourself it was safer to stay invisible. There were moments when you people-pleased, hoping that shrinking yourself might buy peace. There were nights you quietly rebelled, not with words, but with a stubborn refusal to let go of your inner truth. None of these reactions disqualify you. They reveal how deeply you have been forged. Fear whispered that standing out would cost you everything. And for a while, you believed it. The temptation to give up was fierce. Yet even in your surrender, something in you refused to die. That refusal was the ember heaven preserved under the ashes. And here is the revelation. The resistance was not a verdict against you, but a confirmation of you. They mocked your silence because they did not understand it was the chamber where heaven anointed your voice. They mistook restraint for defeat, not knowing every withheld word was prophecy in waiting. They thought the ashes proved your fire was gone. But in truth, They were only covering the lamp until divine wind arrived. What was hidden was never extinguished. It was sanctified. You have carried in your chest a flame that refuses to bow to suppression. And now that flame begins to move, stretching itself into authority you never realized you had. This is your reclamation. Silence turned into fire. Weakness turned into crown. So understand this clearly, chosen one. You were targeted because you are powerful. The greater the weight of opposition, the greater the evidence of the light inside you. Every time they tried to bury you, they were pressing you deeper into your own destiny. Micah 7 verse 8 declares, "Though I sit in darkness, the Lord will be my light." That is your testimony. The ashes were never your grave, but your protection. Comment, "I move guarded by divine fire." If this word ignites your remembrance. And stay with me, because what follows next is the moment where shadows themselves collapse under the weight of your unveiling. Number 3, the unmasking of shadows. When chosen ones rise, illusions collapse. The voices that once shouted loudest begin to tremble, because your discernment exposes what they fought to keep hidden. Isaiah 49 verse 16 says, "See, I have engraved you on the palms of my hands." That engraving cannot be erased, and your remembrance brings light that cracks their masks. They thrived on distraction, on manipulation, on lies spoken in secret, but your very presence makes shadows scatter. Their faces fall, their crowns slip, and what once looked powerful reveals itself as hollow. You didn't even need to fight them. Your light fought for you. Comment, "I rise marked by the divine." If you have ever seen a mask fall when you simply stood in truth and share your dream, your memory, your reflection of that moment. Because the more you remember, the more every shadow breaks. And the breaking is not over yet. It begins with a moment you cannot deny. A memory that once confused you suddenly falls into place. A look in someone's eyes reveals more than their words ever confessed. Or a synchronicity occurs, so precise it shatters coincidence. You feel a subtle but undeniable shift, as though the curtain of your reality has been tugged ever so slightly, revealing a glimpse of something behind it. For years, you dismissed these moments as imagination, yet they return now with weight and clarity. What was once fog now crystallizes into patterns, threads weaving together in ways you never saw before. The strange heaviness, the odd betrayals, the silences you endured, they were not random. They were signals, waiting for you to grow into the vision that could decode them. And chosen one, the decoding has begun. The world itself seems to be written in another tongue, and suddenly you are reading it fluently. Numbers that repeat, words that arrive in dreams, phrases that echo across conversations. All of them shimmer like hidden scrolls meant only for your eyes. The designs you once ignored reveal themselves as sacred geometry, divine math stitched into ordinary hours. Every silence, every pause, every overlooked corner of your life begins to speak with holy resonance. Reality becomes less about events and more about codes, reminders that you were always in dialogue with the unseen. You are not learning a new language. You are remembering an old one. And as you remember, the veil begins to thin, one layer at a time. Inside, you feel the sharpening. The intuition you once questioned now cuts like a blade, drawing clear lines between truth and deceit. Your boundaries rise not from bitterness, but from recognition that your energy carries weight too precious to waste. Rooms feel different, vibrating with resonance or resistance, and your spirit knows immediately which is which. What once felt like overreaction now reveals itself as discernment, the quiet radar of the awakened. You sense motives before they are spoken, and you see intentions written in the shadows of people's eyes. This is not paranoia. This is prophecy moving through your body, and the fire of that recognition begins to burn away your fear. The external world begins to echo your internal change. People shift in your presence, some with reverence, others with unease, as if your very existence unmasks what they wanted to hide. Doors that once slammed shut now creak open, while others collapse into rubble before your eyes. Opportunities arrive like arrows of alignment, yet resistance also intensifies, proof that the architecture of destiny has begun its construction. You notice patterns in the timing, the choreography of events too precise to be explained by chance. They thought they were directing the stage, but you see now that heaven has always been the playwright. The alignment is not random. It is revelation unfolding in real time, and you are no longer a spectator, but the axis around which the play turns. Then memory rises, not as something new, but as something ancient stirring awake. Dreams you once dismissed return with clarity, carrying names and symbols you now understand. A vision you carried as a child, a picture, a voice, a sacred word, reveals itself as prophecy planted early. It was never lost, only waiting for your eyes to ripen. You are not discovering your path, chosen one. You are remembering it. What feels like awakening is actually returning, the reactivation of spiritual intelligence older than your years. And in that remembrance, the ashes you once carried glow again, radiant with the fire you thought had died. With remembrance comes vision, and with vision comes responsibility. The future no longer looks like something to build. It looks like something to reclaim. You see ahead not as empty possibility, but as inheritance sealed long ago. You no longer ask for permission to exist, to speak, to act. You realize that your steps were ordained before your breath filled your lungs. The call inside you is no longer a whisper. It is thunder rising from within. This is not ambition. This is assignment. And the prophecy of your life has begun to write itself into the days ahead, unstoppable, undeniable, unshaken. The resistance you faced, the sabotage, the betrayals, all collapse now into a single revelation. It was confirmation, not condemnation. The attacks were not proof of your weakness. They were proof of your weight. You were not silenced because you were empty. You were silenced because your voice was thunder they could not withstand. And now the time of silence has ended, and the time of reclamation has arrived. Your yes becomes precise. Your no becomes immovable. Your presence becomes throne-like. You do not need their crowns, for you have remembered your own. And in that remembrance, the shadows tremble. Revelation is not the end. Chosen one, it is the invitation. You were never waiting for light. The light was waiting for you to open your eyes. And now that you see, nothing can return to the way it was before. This is the unmasking of shadows. They fall not because you fight, but because you stand. What was concealed collapses in the presence of your remembrance, and the hidden codes rise like fire in your bones. Comment, "I walk hidden yet never lost," if this word resonates in your soul, and share the dream, the memory, the reflection that confirmed it in your journey. For the more you speak it, the more the veil tears. And what comes next, chosen one, is the crown that cannot be stripped. Number 4, the seal of remembrance. Now the hidden name rises, the one heaven wrote before you entered the world. Micah 7 verse 8 declares, "Though I sit in darkness, the Lord will be my light." This was never about you finding light outside. It was always about remembering the seal within. You were never abandoned, only concealed until the appointed time. And now, chosen one, your remembrance has become your authority. Your no is sharp, your yes precise, your silence throne-like. Comment, "I anchor this truth in my soul," if you felt that hidden name stir within you, and share the moment you realized you were never forgotten. Because what comes next is not just light revealed, it is light enthroned. There are moments when a sound that feels older than your bones brushes against your spirit, and you recognize it without knowing why. It is not a new voice, but an ancient whisper that has been following you through the corridors of lifetimes. You may hear it in a dream, or in the silence after a prayer, or in the strange calm that comes before a storm. It is the reminder that what you are stepping into is not invention, but remembrance, like a scroll sealed long ago and finally unrolled in your presence. The words inscribed are both foreign and familiar. This is not a discovery, it is an unveiling. And chosen one, the unveiling is for you. Deep within you there has always been a name, one not spoken aloud, yet etched into eternity. That name is not the one given by family or by culture or by circumstance, but by the one who formed you before the beginning. It was not shouted into the noise of the world, but carried in the stillness of heaven. Every time you felt misplaced or mislabeled or unseen, it was not because you lacked identity. It was because the world could not pronounce your hidden one. The sealed scroll of your being was not for their hands to open, but for the divine to reveal when the hour was right. Isaiah 62 verse 2 promises, "You will be called by a new name that the mouth of the Lord will bestow." That new name has always been the old one you carried, hidden under layers of forgetting. You have also worn the unseen cloak, the covering that only the awakened can sense. People may not have known why they reacted strongly to your presence, but they felt the mark. It was not painted on your skin, but it resonated in your aura, in the way your silence carried more weight than their words. This cloak was both shield and sign, hiding you while revealing you to those with the eyes to see. Sometimes it felt like isolation, as if you were cloaked away from recognition, but it was always preservation. Psalm 91 speaks of the shadow of the Almighty as refuge, and you have walked in that shadow unaware. You were never just ordinary, you were marked. Think now of the strange promises that lingered in your life, the vows you didn't remember making, the sense that you were bound to something bigger than yourself. That sense was not confusion, it was covenant. Your path was shaped by contracts written beyond the veil, scrolls signed in realms where your spirit stood long before your body took form. Every struggle was not random punishment, but rehearsal for fulfillment. Every delay was a timing device, a hidden alignment preparing you for remembrance. Like stars fixed in orbits they cannot escape, your life has been pulled toward the vow you once made. You are not arriving late. You are arriving precisely on time. Others have seen this seal on you without understanding it. Some were drawn with devotion. Others were triggered with hostility. But both responses were mirrors of your hidden weight. They reacted not to what you did, but to what you carried. Your presence has always been a catalyst, awakening truth in some and stirring shadows in others. That is why some celebrated you while others rejected you violently. Both recognized something in you that words could not explain. 2 Corinthians 2 verse 15 calls it being the aroma of Christ, fragrant to some, intolerable to others. You did not ask to be the mirror, yet you always were. And in that mirror, their true nature was revealed. This remembrance is not a private event. It is cosmic alignment. The archetypes rise again. The prophet, the breaker of chains, the guardian, the seer. You are not living a random life, but stepping into a prophetic cycle that has been playing long before you entered the world. Every myth, every sacred story, every symbol of rebellion and redemption has pointed toward this hour. To know yourself now is to know that you are part of something larger, an eternal script where you embody an ancient role. The remembrance in you is not a fragment, it is a convergence. Heaven's archetypes have been waiting for your agreement. Chosen one, hear me. Your path was never random. Every silence, every burial, every shadow only confirmed the seal on your name. Subscribe if you haven't yet. like this video, and comment, "I am chosen to let this message anchor in your soul. You were not buried. Chosen one, you were planted, and now the lamp inside you reveals what was hidden all along."